All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Cholé Messdaghi, and I am the co-lead for WoSec's chapter in San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm with my fellow colleague as well. Chandra, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Shraddha. I just started working with Chloe for co-leading the SF chapter. I work as a manager in cybersecurity at Salesforce, and I'm really excited to work with everyone and meet you guys.
Thank you. And just a little reminder, you've probably been getting these emails quite often, but we're moving off of Meetup. We're going to be going on to Tribe. So it's really important for you guys to register on Tribe because sooner or later, the Meetup group is going to probably close within months' time. So just be aware of that. All right. So I'm going to kindly ask for everyone to mute your mic at this time so then we can get started. If you guys have any questions at all, if you want us to cover anything, make sure to put it into the chat and I'll keep an eye on it. But today we're going to be covering basically what to expect when applying for jobs in InfoSec during a pandemic, even if it weren't in a pandemic. What are some gatekeeping things that are happening? We'll also talk about a little bit of NIST as well. And also what to do when you're between jobs or when you're about to start looking. What are some things that you need to be aware of? But I first would love to have Deidre, who's going to be probably providing majority of the advice of today's session. Deidre is the CEO and founder of CyberSN. Deidre, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Chloe. It's great to be here with you. It's impressive what you and the team have been doing. And so I'm happy to give my time. You all are great champions of sisterhood, and that's super important to me. So yeah, let's get into this wonderful world of job searching. It's so much fun, right? It's a mess. So give me the questions. Where do you want to start?
Okay, so the first question that I tend to get is things moving slower because of the pandemic when it comes to hiring? Because some people they're like, I submitted my application, but I haven't heard anything for weeks and weeks, and then finally they contact me. Is this normal? Or is this just how the new normal is?
It was normal before the epidemic, and it's still normal. So I'm gonna. The good news is that I've been around for a while. I've been around in the business now 30 years. So I'm gonna give you guys some information that's gonna blow your mind as to why it's become the normal, and it's really because of the digital era. So, first of all, you all know that job descriptions don't make a lot of sense, right? You're always looking at them going, what's this job description? I don't even know what this means, but depending on where I'm at, if I'm unemployed, I'm probably going to respond. If I'm not unemployed, I probably wouldn't respond. And so there's a reason that created that, and it's the digital era, which means no longer does it cost $5,000 to run an ad in the Sunday paper that was this big. And I know because I was out there I'm running staffing agencies. You got about this much space for $5,000. That's like $15,000 now, right? So that job description really meant something. Now a job description is a couple $100. You can leave it up all year, and people don't put a lot of effort into the job descriptions. And because of that, and because there's so many folks trying to get into the space too, people are just applying. And so there's overload. So that's one piece of it. Then the other piece of it is how many recruiters speak cybersecurity. I mean, come on, you know me, Chloe, I had to build a whole platform, of like the questions to ask when you're taking a job based on any given title in cybersecurity. I'm like the founder of all the job, categories and tasks and projects, because my recruiters couldn't speak what they needed to speak to have a place, that was going to make it a cost-effective experience to make a match. So we've got sort of this overload of data because content's become very free. This, industry is so vast and so deep that recruiters aren't speaking the language, and companies in general under budgeted. So it's quite a mess. I hate to laugh. It's like a nervous laugh of how much of a mess it is,
So what are some tricks that people can practice to get their resume at the top of it so that it's not this long wait to hear back.
Yeah. Oh God. Okay. So, you know, first of all, just recognize that it's a numbers game. There aren't many tricks anymore. Back in the day, in the early days, people tried putting all the SEO words in, coded so that you couldn't see them in the resumes. And it worked for a little bit, but all of those days are gone. And so just submitting your resume to a job that's posted has very low return. So it doesn't mean that you don't participate, particularly if you're new in the industry. There's not a lot of networking that you have experience in to leverage. So you have to, but really everybody sort of has to, just because you don't know, is this a real job? Like, meaning, are they really serious? Are they not serious? Do they know what they're talking about in this job description? Do they not? And so there's a lot of, you just apply. The rest, the real, place to be is networking, which is why organizations like what you're doing with WoSec are so important, and organizations like Secure Diversity that I have. And of course, I have the largest cybersecurity staffing firm in the US, and yet there's no way it's a one-on-one, there's no way at scale that's enough, right? It's just not. It's a one-on-one business, human to human staffing, right? So networking, getting involved with CTFs, getting involved on GitHub, going to digital events, in-person events when we can, right? Those, building one's network. I've got Day of Security coming up. It's free. That's a great place to come, find people that are serious about hiring. But, it's work, Chloe. It's not like there's one thing that you can do and, hide SEO on your resume, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know that one of the tricks I've applied is looking who works at that company and like try to find out information about what's the work culture like, what's the team like. So you have conversations with them. I used to do this thing where when you could do it back in the day, which is like, can I get you a coffee? Can we just sit down for 15 minutes? Can I get 15 minutes of your time just to learn about your organization, your team, to see whether or not this is what I want to do or apply for? And it's always great because when you meet with them, they're like, wow, this person's going out of their way to get to know this job or this opportunity. And then they refer you. And that's when you get on top of the piles getting referred to.
Totally. And that's going deep into the networking concept. And that's one way, is that you see a job posted, absolutely see who you know that you're connected to. See how you can, if you have somebody or somebody that's connected to somebody that's connected that can introduce you, there is no doubt that is going to be putting you at the top is another person saying, hey, this person has some questions and thoughts about these jobs. Would you be wanting to talk to them? And they love it. That's number one. What's number two? Do you have anything else in your networking tool belt there? That's a good one.
That one, the other one is doing a little bit of social engineering. What I did, actually, a funny story, my first job, I would say this would be like my first real like InfoSec job, which was when I worked at BugCrowd. And how I got that job was because I social engineered every single event to attend. So I got to know every single person that was hired by BugCrowd by attending all their events. So then when it came to, the founder being connected to me, I was just like, yeah, remember when we were at the pool together and we started talking about researchers? And that's how you really do it, is getting out of that comfort zone. And that's the one thing about networking, is like, it's never going to feel comfortable, you guys. That is the reality of it. But it definitely helps.
Look at that. Like, that's being aggressive. I mean, aggressive is a great word. I tell people it's not a negative word. It's literally what we have to do to achieve. And yet, think about, isn't that like one of the most silliest things, that we have to be aggressive, socially, engineer so that we can find employment? Like, what?
Yeah.
In the hottest industry, like it's really craziness. It's my passion is to solve it, because it makes no sense. It's a national security issue, how silly it is. And how much time we're wasting on these young, your brains are so fresh, and the younger generation is struggling to get in, it's terrible. So until that, there's a new paradigm shift completed that I'm working on, and how this whole thing works, this ecosystem, everybody's got to be really aggressive. And you got to do what Chloe's talking about and be willing to ask somebody 2 and 3 times to help you. You know, in sales, there's something we call the 3-time rule, which is if you're not willing to sell your solution 3 times to the same person, meaning in the same conversation when they say no, if you're not willing to say it again and again in a different way, coming at a different angle, at least 3 times, well, then you weren't going to show that person that you really meant it. And so it's the same thing when asking another person to help you. You know, it's okay to ask the second time and the third time. And usually it's the third time because it's sort of like that other human says, oh, you know what, this person's really serious. I'm gonna go out of my way for them. You know, like that's very true of how humans interact. So 3
I
times.
do have a question, ladies. Sorry, I joined a little bit late. So anyways, I'd like to know if this conversation now is more towards how as an individual you're trying to look for a job, right? Rather than if you're actually looking for people, because that's a situation I am at this moment. So I just wanted to know if this is a topic that's going to be later on in the conversation, or how's the dynamic going? Because I'm really interested on that.
Meaning you're looking for a job yourself?
No,
you want to.
I'm a security operations manager currently at F5, so I'm always looking for people, and not just people. I actively look for girls in security, right? So yeah, I'm one of the women employee inclusion groups leader here at F5. And I know it's not my job to recruit people, but I take that job seriously and I actively look for women. So I'm building here a large team in Guadalajara, Mexico. So I was interested to know if this actually was part of the conversation, because I really would I could use some of those suggestions, right? Like where to look. I know it's different countries and everything, but one thing here and there may be helpful as well.
Yeah. So basically it's kind of like an open conversation. Okay. We're having people type in the chat what their questions are, so we can make sure that we hit each one. But in regards to your question, there was like this one part where I can answer it really quick, which is that if you're looking to recruit women, is to connect with all the women organizations in security is going to be a huge beneficial thing, because we always take those job opportunities and post it within our communities for other women to be aware of it. So by being active in those communities, you can actually share a job post about them. So that's how you can get more women, is targeting who you want by going after those groups and being like, hey, I'm trying to find people here. What else, Deidre, other than that?
I have a slide. I don't have it, right in front of me, but a slide of every group. So I'm happy to, anybody want to message me at dd@cybersn.com. That's my email. I'm happy to give those slides. And also, is your name Lupita?
Yes, correct.
So nice to meet you. F5, we've done staffing for here in the US, my firm. And last year, 50% of the people, 51% of the folks we placed were women. So we're a large cybersecurity staffing firm, and we'd be happy to help you out there too. We have partners all over the country. That being said, the groups, every group, WoSec, WeSys, women, who code, all of us, everybody's sharing jobs. So we'll get you that information. And what we are going to talk about too today is just, when you are hiring, and Chloe, maybe we can just jump into that. Okay. Because it really, the information really goes back and forth in this conversation, because when you're hiring, the most important thing to be thinking about is how do you present your roles? How do you really present what they are? Because making that match is where all the conflict typically is, meaning the time and money and just all the conversations that aren't the right, right fits. And both sides are stressed of the time that it takes. So the number one thing that I really talk about with people is making sure that their job descriptions are about the job and not the profile of the person they think they want to hire. So, if it's a security engineer, well, what is it? What tasks and projects, do you need them to be able to do, not what products or experience do you think they need to have? Because you won't attract a passive job seeker with a job description that is about a persona of a human that you think should respond, which is what most jobs are, about 80% that and 20% about the job. So if you looked at the jobs at cybersn.com, and there's free technology for you to build them, we're the founders of what is now the 45 job categories, similar or incorporating NICE and NIST and what they've done, not on purpose, but because the content's that good, to say, what are these roles? What do you want somebody to be doing? I mean, a security engineer could be 12 different types of personas, and so really that's the key, first and foremost, to passive. If you're trying to find experienced people, most of them are passive job seekers. And even if that it's not a passive job seeker, everybody wants a job description that it shares that. It's the number one complaint in the industry.
Also that they, for the longest time, they still use he when they were describing like security professionals. So like, he must have the following. And I remember seeing that at the beginning. I was like, what? Yeah. Are you serious? But yes.
Yeah. And even worse is women, we're not going to respond. Typically, data shows that unless we feel like we've got everything there. So that whole concept of saying 3 to 5 years of this or 6 years of this or what have you, if a woman doesn't have it exactly, statistics show they don't respond. Yeah. So that's also a problem. And who's to say that it's true that you have to have 6 years to be good enough with whatever it is, right? I mean, that's sort of limiting us all.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like most of the time with job descriptions, it's just kind of like an outline of who had that position prior, or if it's like, well, we're trying to have this conceptual idea of the person we want to hire, but in reality, they already are aware they're not going to get 100%. And that's okay for them. They're just looking for the right person who is ready to roll up their sleeves, that are that problem solver, that person who's going to bring a whole different solutions to a problem, the one who's going to go running. That's the person that they want. So when you're preparing for that job interview, it's so important is to actually research what are the areas that they could do better in, and bring that up in the interview. And I know for women, we're always like, oh no, we can't talk bad about the company and what we're seeing. But the reality is that's what they need to hear, and that's what they're looking for. Of course, don't go completely negative on the company, but state like, you're doing this right, but I see there's this area that you're struggling in, and this is how I would fix it.
During as a part of the interviewing process, like problems you can solve, how you can solve people's problems. Sure. Yeah. Well, and if you really understand the job, then it's easy to do that, right? The challenge is making sure they've communicated the job. And, to that point too, so when a job description makes sense, typically that means the security department is really well defined between roles and responsibilities. And the number one reason a security professional is would leave their current position is because they don't have growth and opportunity. And a well-defined, organized team can be shown through everybody knows their roles and responsibilities. And that starts with, job description is a definition of roles and responsibilities. So to me, not only are job descriptions the right way to hire, it's also the way to manage a team so that everybody knows, like create those job descriptions with everybody's tasks and projects and how much time they spend in each category, and keep it updated and have it be a living document within a team. I mean, this is the number one way to attract professionals, because everybody wants to be successful. Nobody comes to work to fail. And the number one challenge is for everybody understanding their role and their job and what are they supposed to be doing. And those playbooks ultimately stem from job descriptions, which is why I made my technology free, because I could never service the whole world. And I want people to minimally have that so that we can have more retention. I mean, I've got statistics. We're going to be putting our data into Snowflake. And I have statistics that are showing that the people that we place are staying at their organizations 2.5 times longer. And I know it's because we upfront work with the client to create that job description within that technology, and making sure every task and project is noted, and then interview professionals that way. So how many people take jobs and sort of, I didn't really understand the job until after, right? That's eliminated. That then affects retention. So if you want to hire, really have your roles and responsibilities clearly defined, and also, focus on career pathing as a part of your interviewing process, selling that, because that's what everybody wants. They want to be a part of that. growth opportunities, and taking, their education is going to be looked after and want to continue to learn. And so those are the organizations we see be very successful that are willing to do that, participate.
I have questions, a lot actually.
Yay!
So the first one, probably a quick one, will be what tool you're talking about. You mentioned you have a tool that is free. Like, what tool you're talking about?
CyberSN.com. Look, Chloe, can you put that? I can put it in there. CyberSN.com, and it's called the No More platform. You'll find it within our website. And it is job descriptions of over 100 plus common job descriptions defined up into 45 job categories. And then you can create a job based on any title that you put in that you will literally be asked, will they do this task? Will they do this task? And if you click yes, eventually you'll have your job description and everything's there for you to export it.
That sounds awesome. Can you repeat the name of the website?
Cyber, CYB. Oh, I'm going to put it here in the cybersn.com, and you'll see job building, build free job descriptions.
Yeah, and actually probably that one aligns to my other question, because you were mentioning, like, do not outline the experience, the years of experience that you're looking for a person. Like, currently, the jobs that we post at F5 is like, we have level 1, 2, 3, senior, whatever, and we're expecting this person from 0 to 1, from 2 to 3, or whatever, right? So it really caught my attention what you're talking about. So is the suggestion just to post the title of the role, the skills you're looking?
Yeah, let me share with you, because this is really interesting topic. So there's internal language and then there's external language, right? Like, meaning how you communicate roles and responsibilities. I can share my screen here. So let me just show you. And I think this is really important for everybody to see here, the resources. So first of all, the resources of the 45 job categories is right here under resources meet CyberSN. So what we did is we defined every role and folded up all the titles that could be underneath them, right? So any one of these you could click and you're going to see what titles are associated with this, right? And then we said, okay, so if we want to organize data like this, and ultimately we want our jobs to look like this, which is a security analyst, and here we go, we want our jobs to look like this. Oh, so this is security analyst, but look at what this job actually is. This is a live, real job. 75% of it is compliance. That's where titles don't really mean much to the world as much as what am I doing on my tasks and my projects. And so literally the platform will just, all you have to do is click the answers. Will they do this? Will they do that? And so this is also how professionals make profiles on our platform. Everybody is agnostic, covert, using the same taxonomy and the same technology to create what they do. This is a security software individual. And you can see that the title, again, this is where titles, they're not for determining the outside world, how the outside world should understand a job, you know what I mean? Or a professional.
Yeah. So this tool is for free. So this section, right?
Yeah, just to build your job, and I'll show you right now. I'll show you how it looks, and it's the same way to build a profile, although you'll have a bit of a different experience doing so. And we're launching in August a complete marketplace, career center, the pathwaying, salaries, everything. Everybody needs this content. So let's say you're here to create a job. Once you log in, let's say application security engineer. Great, application security engineer. These are usually the 3 functional roles that go along with that, but you can, add, delete if there's other functional roles for your job. These are in alphabetical order. And then you just get going and say, okay, from an AppSec perspective, are they going to perform application security testing? Yes. Okay, great. So if I clicked yes, now it's going to ask me, how about dynamic application security? So I clicked yes to that. Now I'm going to pick the tools or the products, right? And then I'm going to go static. And literally that's the whole process that gets you that end job description that you saw. And so, then you're going to go into the next section and do the same thing.
This is just amazing. Did you say you work with F5?
Yeah. Our San Fran team has worked with F5. So it should be pretty easy for you to use our services. Even in Mexico, we have great partners there that use our technology and our system. So at the end, it'll show you everything that you selected. You put your percentage breakdown, because that's so key to these jobs is to say, oops, where did it go? Is to say, okay, well, how much time I'm putting in what I'm doing is completely will define if I'm qualified and interested. Qualification is only one piece of this game, right? Like, it's interest level. So when our job descriptions look like this, well, then people can say, hey, not only am I qualified, I'm interested. And if I'm a passive job seeker, I'm going to apply to this. CyberSN's jobs get applied to because of this, for sure, because they're understandable. I can look in my mobile view and I can say, this is what the job is. It makes sense to include the money, the location. Could I be remote? Could I not be, will they pay to move me? How about, citizenship status for sponsorship, right? Like, we take out the noise, because as a service, that's what I have to do. That is my service, but there's no scale in it unless I can create this, and which is why I created this years ago. We launched it in Black Hat 2019 International, and now, version 2 is just going to be epic from the perspective of Career Center. Because, solving, searching, and matching is one thing, and we'll have all cyber jobs there, and we're going to do some really cool, unique ways of scraping and putting them into better ways of viewing them. But then there's the career support and career mapping and guidance, and where do I get more training, or what is the training I should be asking the company I work for, and what does it cost? How do I, so that whole piece is super important too. So we're really committed to solving this. I'm proving it in cybersecurity, and I think we need to take it to all industries, right? It's about speaking a common language, a taxonomy of a common language per profession, so that we can easily find each other being in one place and then match. That's where all the noise is. And then we can focus on succession planning, and, we won't be moving around so much, and jobs from here, CISOs are moving jobs every 18 months.
Yeah, I think that also knowing the pay up front is really important, because also when they're like, so how much are you looking for? And we've always been trained to say like how much we were making at our previous job, which you should never do. But the thing is like, having to have that question asked in the first place, it is the most awkward conversation for the person who's being interviewed.
That's right. And for the employers, they do have a salary band. They do. And so it's a waste of everybody's time to interview for a job when, it's not the right salary.
Expectation. Yeah.
Yes, it's a lot of churn in that. Same thing with like a degree or education. Don't put it in a job description unless it's an absolute must-have, because people will not apply. So in my platform, it tells you, is this a must-have? Because if you're putting it there, then somebody that doesn't have it isn't going to apply. Is that what you want to do? So, really thinking about that. Same thing with location. Don't waste each other's time. Be very specific. You can pick countries, multiple cities, remote in the platform. It really, we need to be thinking that way, which all the noise is causing a big part of the problem of us finding each other and bringing newbies in.
So I always get this question, maybe Deidre, you can answer it, which is, when you're in the final part of your interview and they give you a low ball amount of pay, how do you negotiate that? And also, how do you negotiate actually a higher title or a change of a title in a sense? So say, for example, you're like, they want to give you head of this department. And you're like, you know what? I don't want head of that. I want VP of that department. So can you talk us through of what that looks like, what kind of points you need to have, what kind of research you need to have before you have that type of conversation?
Yeah, well, for sure, you need to know what you want. And if you're truly, but when you know what you want, then it's about being committed to that. And then being committed to that means not being afraid to ask for it, and being okay with people saying no when you ask for it, and not getting scared and stopping asking for it, right? So meaning we got to, you know, understand what you want. Like, you know, what salary you're going to say you want, what title, right? Do your research. As you said, there's lots of different ways to do that. And then, so when we're in the moment of, and we're discussing salary, the most important thing is that you're first and foremost able to look at total compensation. So when somebody gives you a salary range, you say, okay, well, a lot of different salary ranges happening in the industry, right? That's a true statement. We all know that. So thank you for sharing that. How about total compensation? What else is within your compensation? Your job is to get the full picture before you put your demand forward, because you may change your mind. You may hear something in RSUs. You may hear something in bonuses and sign-ons that makes that that salary range okay for you, you know, or paying for education or something. But either way, even if it is okay because you heard total comp and you're thinking, you know, this is good enough. I really like this job. Because again, if you don't like the job, don't even go there. Don't even waste your time. Know that you'll find something out there. But again, and you really like the job, then it's still okay to have the conversation. You're not going to lose the opportunity, right? So what you want to say is, I really have enjoyed the interviewing process. I'm super interested in working for you all. I'd like to be making a decision soon. I have some other opportunities that I'm seeing through. I'd love to know what your best offer is, and then be quiet. Those of us that came up through sales, we were trained like whoever speaks next loses. So I don't care if it's silent for 20 seconds. Stay silent. It's okay. It might feel like an hour, but it's okay. And see what they say. Is it their best offer? And you know, most people are going to be very honest and say it is or it isn't. If there's any stumbling in between, you know, it's not. And so, you know, you can say, I'd really, you know, when they say, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or this or that, and say, you know what, I'd really like to see a higher salary. Right. So that's the money conversation. The key is don't pull out the salary from total comp before you start negotiating, so to speak. And negotiation is not a bad thing. It is one thing that women in general have statistically shown to do at a much less than men. And so know that these folks are used to people, i.e., you know, 90% of the market is men. So 90% of the market is having these conversations. So it's okay. You don't have to be afraid about it. In terms of titles are super interesting. Some companies, you know, Lupita has said it, you know, they've got very serious titles. You can't change them in a lot of companies, you know. And so that conversation, just understand sometimes they can't. Most often they can. So certainly have the conversation about the title you want. And again, be willing to implement that 3-time rule, sort of stick in the conversation of, well, if they say, I'm not sure, well, stay in the conversation longer. Say, would you mind really checking on it? I'm not, you know, you could say, I'm not saying it's a deal breaker, but I really would like it. And I would appreciate if you'd go the extra, you know, mile to see if we could make that happen. You know, but again, you're not going to lose anything by having that conversation if it's like that. And the 3-time rule is key. Again, are they going to really go out of their way to go figure that out if you're not sounding like it's something you really want to do? And just asking one time is not convincing enough for it, you know, especially since humans' brains, the subconscious is really mostly what's going on in conversation, you know, so there's a lot of programs just running, right? People are going to take the path of least resistance, especially at offer stage and trying, you know, really wanting to close the situation so that somebody can start and that team be more productive and, right, and carry more load off the folks that are carrying it. So, you know, have the conversation, do it well by thinking about it first. We got something in chat. Negotiation is good resource. Lovely. Oh, from Stanford, women's leadership. Lovely.
We'll check out.
Yeah.
So we did have a question at the top, which is, What are some of the best networking opportunities? And I'm assuming that during COVID time, because we can't really meet in person, what are some ways that we can network virtually?
Yeah. Well, I guess depending on where you live, I've heard of a lot, a lot of people are out having lunches again and meetups are starting. It's not in California, as we know. So, depending on where you're at, there could be stuff that's happening in person. So if you're up for that with a mask, check that out. But I think that it's literally everybody's doing what we're doing right now. And it's about showing up and being willing to put it in the chat that you're looking for a job for the people that are there. I'm sure Lupita would love to see, anybody put in there, who's looking for a job in the chat. Like, be aggressive. Aggressive just means that you're pushing things forward. It's not negative. It means you're making motion, you're making movement, you're creating. So being aggressive is putting yourself out there in the chat, going to as many of these as possible and putting yourself in that chat, depending on what the event's like. Speak if you can, within it. Introduce yourself, say, hey, I want to introduce myself. I'm here. Like, that's what these are for. So make yourself known. I used to tell people when the live events were happening, wear a shirt that says, I'm looking for a job in big letters on both sides and walk the conference. Like I've been telling people that forever, because, even at a conference, how much one-on-one can you do? So, like, we don't have time to mess around. This is serious stuff.
What do you think? Because I'm about to have some openings, so I'm doing a pre-research, right? It's like I've got to have people align already once the position is open. Yeah. So as soon as it is, so I have like, okay, this is what we talked about. This is the first time I'm doing this, and I just want to know, what do you think? So I'm practically looking on LinkedIn and see who's got like similar profiles that I think will align, and anything, even people that the profiles doesn't like 100% qualifies, like, but if you want it, you can do it. Like, the question is, do you want to? So I had this informal conversation with the lady, totally outside of the scope of the recruiters, right? So is that an activity you would encourage to do if we have the time and willingness or whatever, to reach out like an informal way to actually talk about the position and the opportunities to those possible candidates?
Yeah. People take jobs because of the people. So more, and which is the other thing, your interviewing process, how you engage, being on time. And so anything that you can do to create a relationship, it's just going to put you in a greater position when you're ready. So offering to speak to somebody that's job searching, even when you're not ready, I'm sure it would be much appreciated, because they're getting ghosted left and right. That's a typical process.
The other thing is that people tend to forget that when you're interviewing, you're also interviewing them too. You want to make sure this is where you want to work. The last thing you want is to commit yourself to a company that you didn't really have that good feeling with at the beginning. Like, don't do that. Like, wait it out. You'll find a better opportunity. It's better to have a good feeling when moving forward than to have that moving forward with some sort of regret or like concerns. I've seen that happen quite a bit.
Yeah, it happens in everybody's younger careers typically, and then, then you gain the awareness of what to look for, how to have the conversation, to know even yourself enough of how, what kind of culture you want to be in. And so I watch people as they progress, learn how to do that. And here's a trick for that. Answer a question with a question. So you're in a job interview and your job is to impress by being interested and interesting. But you're also got to figure out that job, because we just said that most of those job descriptions don't mean anything. And the person interviewing you probably isn't talking about the job, they're interviewing you. And so you don't even know what to sort of pull out, because you're not the job, you don't really know the job. So your job is to figure out the job. So answer a question with a question. So answer their question and then ask a question about the job. Answer their question, ask another question about the job. Think about the questions you would ask about the job based on the job description. And you can even say, looking at your job description, right? And ask your questions. This will put you in the seat that Chloe's talking about, with that confidence to be able to say, yeah, you know what, this isn't the right fit for me, versus feeling like you didn't get the job. let's shift that make a paradigm shift there.
Another question, how about when you're trying to look for a job overseas in another country? How, like, what do you need to do to put your name out there, your resume out there on top of the local candidates, right? Because you're gonna be more expensive probably at the beginning because of whatever sponsorship they would need, that would like to have, for example. But are there any thoughts around that, suggestions?
Yeah, that's a world I'm just starting to really dive into, because the platform is international, and how do we represent money in particular with individuals that may want to move countries? I really have this desire to support the world economy of so many people, and their kids go away to school, and I would love to go work in another country, or folks in general saying I'd love to go work in another country. How the hell do you do that? So I don't have all the answers to that yet, but the number one barrier I see is, understanding what it takes to legally work in that country for the individual, and where do they get the support, and will the company support it, will it not support it, and taking that noise out of the way so that we can get to the possibility. It is a bit of a challenge. Luckily, California, and specifically San Francisco, so this is really interesting statistics, is the only state thus far that my firm, as large as we are, has ever had clients that will sponsor H-1 visas in security. I mean, that's great. That just blows my mind, that the rest of the states aren't, Now I know, Lupita, you're talking about hiring people in Mexico, right? Which part are you in, by the way?
In Guadalajara?
Oh my gosh, it was one of my I grew up in Irvine, California. So it was one of my early vacations with my parents. I loved it there. So you're thinking about bringing US citizens to Guadalajara?
Not really. I mean, I have future plans of looking for something overseas. I'm looking first internally, but obviously it's a question I have. Like, how do I position myself on top of other candidates that are locally?
It's hard and that's what I have to now tackle, is what do local environments of other countries, what is their job searching experience? Who's to say it's anywhere, like ours, meaning, I would imagine LinkedIn's probably everywhere, and yet who knows how it's being used. So I'd love to hear from you. Actually, that's my goal, is to, sort of get in, contact with folks in each country and having that conversation. Let's see, we got a question in here, Chloe.
Yep, I'm on it. So yeah, at the end of this, we can all do introductions if everyone wants to do that. I just want to make sure that we cover all the topics that you guys have before then. Nice. Okay, so one of the other topics that, which is very common right now, is besides LinkedIn, where are some other places to look when job searching?
Yeah. I mean, the job boards themselves are aggregated, so you can pick one of them, the Indeeds or the Zip Recruiters, I'm sure, but I've never heard of a lot of success. Again, but even if it's 1 out of 100 gets success, it's probably worth it. There really isn't anything. I mean, CyberSN has a job board, as you know, and has this technology, and then we've got LinkedIn, and then we've got the not-for-profit groups that have job boards that are, or the, the training institutes, right? SANS, ISC Squared. Actually, I don't think ISC Squared has one yet, but SANS. I'm not sure. But, think about the training institutes, because they, most likely they're tied to jobs in some capacity. It doesn't mean they have a job board, but certainly that they'd be tied to jobs. And universities are, doing more and more. So check out for sure, if anybody in university, what they have to offer than plugging into, tech companies typically. But there's nothing that's hidden.
And then the other question we tend to get asked quite a bit at WoSec is, what is the time frame of getting hired usually look like for those that are entry, and for those that are middle level, and then for those that are executive?
It's great that you pointed out that way, because there's a definite difference. The entry level and the top are the longest and the hardest. The entry level is the hardest because there's not a lot of succession planning, not a lot of budgets to hire for succession planning. That's what hiring entry level is. And so those are minimum of 6 months, and some people it's a lot longer depending on how much they've been able to get involved in GitHub CTFs, right? Be out there really engaging the community. And then the C levels is definitely a good year, which is what really blows my mind when I think about that 18-month stat for a chief information security officer, because if it takes a year to find the job, and that means that 8 months into the job, they're looking for a job. So OMG. And again, I don't blame them at all. I'm blaming this whole sort of how we're taking on security departments at the top. My peers, fellow CEOs need and such need to be understanding of this. This is much more vast and understand their chief information security officers. But imagine that at 8 months, you'd have to start looking. I mean, it's nutty to think about how that affects the team and everything else. And yet that's the way society is. We have to hide when we job hunt, right? So, and then the folks in the middle have it easier because there's more jobs in one company. So more security engineers, more application, blue team, red team, right? The hands-on roles, there's analysts, there's more of you in those roles. And so those are 3 to 6 months, which is silly. With us, our clients, we have a 39-day commit and we don't lose. But again, it's because we can match, and we're infiltrated, of course, or part of the community is probably a better way to say it. Not the best stats to hear if somebody's unemployed, and actually just as bad, other than the financial piece, to be, job searching while employed that many months, hiding from whoever you work for, right? Like that's terrible. It's just a yucky system we have. So again, I'm super committed to solving this. I'm a sociology by trade, certainly understand how to build platforms and things. And yet it's because I saw this problem that this is not good. This is not good for society. How we categorize ourselves for jobs and match to jobs is a bad, broken system.
Definitely on that front. So before we let people do introductions and for networking purposes, is there any other questions that people have at this time? All right. Feel free to introduce yourselves, you guys.
Shall I stop recording so that people?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.